feel free to maybe drop like a message if you have a question or something, and I'll see how I can answer non-disruptively. All right. Um, let's talk about designing the future, scaling your career in the AI era. This is partly brought to you guys by Treford. Awesome guys that I have done a bit of work with in the past, and I have known them for a while now, and they're doing something pretty interesting. So a few years ago, or a few months ago, actually, let's say slightly over a year, a friend and I, who are designers at TopTal and also friends living in the same city, we're talking about our experience in AI and how it has been changing the design climate, not just in Nigeria, but globally in terms of the kind of jobs you get and kind of in terms of the kind of conversations that people are having. And we coined the term, I like to coin the term Beyond Pixels, which is where this AI conversation, AI and design conversation started with us. We've had talks in different states. Kaduna, done a virtual session before, gave a similar talk in Kano during the Friends of Figma watch party. But today I sort of broke things down to a more granular level because that's a high level presentation. This one is more like this is where we are. What do we do next? Right. So again, today's topic is building and scaling a design career in the AI age. And it's about helping designers thrive in a world that is influenced by AI. Well, my name is Mudia Emasme. I am a product designer. I'm also a filmmaker. Um, and I guess my introduction has been done already. So we could go back to that later, but this is going to be a long presentation, so buckle up. Let's talk about adapting your design career with AI. All right, so what I'm going to do is run you through the agenda that we have for today, and then it's going to be a lot, like I said. If you have questions, please drop them in the chats, and I could get to them either during the presentation or after the presentation. I have a feeling that some of the questions you will ask might be answered down the line. So yeah. So like I said, this is our agenda, adapting your design career with AI, right? Some of the things we're going to do is examine the impact of AI in the design industry, both positive and negative. Identify essential new skills that you need as a designer, like prompt engineering, talk about ethical AI. We're going to discuss how to remain creative and competitive with AI tools. And we're going to talk about outlining strategies for junior and mid-level designers, including visibility and mentorship. Also going to give you tips for building a portfolio. Something that puts you there as an AI-driven designer. So like we'll talk about personal brand for a bit also. And then we'll talk about cutting edge tools, which you would see during the course of the presentations. And I'll show you a few websites. Stuff like Flora, Manos, the one that was purchased by Google recently, which is Galileo, which is now called Stitch. Also, I will show you a list of communities you can join, both on Reddit, Discord, and I believe even on Slack. So let's talk about how AI is transforming design. First off, we have a few reality checks right now, which is the industry is changing, right? Which means tasks that you used to take a while to do an automated stuff like fixing code, even generating basic UI layouts. This is Stitch, by the way. AI tools basically are now a designer in a box, right? You can basically prompt your way to anything manageable. Now, this basically spreads design process, especially for junior designers. It also means professionals have to focus on higher level tasks. So as a designer who is either a mid-level or a senior, you have to start thinking futuristically, you have to start thinking high level, you have to go beyond pixels and boxes. Now, good thing is that although AI can produce designs, right? The complex problems, the human problems that are there, you can't solve them. So as designers, we're not obsolete. We're basically learning it. So if you have designed for a really long time, say not of 10 to 12, 14 years, actually those who have been designing for that long, I know Leslie has been doing design for that long, you will realize that a lot of UI design started with Photoshop and then Illustrator. And then when Figma came out, trust me, take a while for people to port. Right now, Figma is really popular. Back in the day, this about, I don't know, 8 years ago, people were still kind of finicky about it, right? And that's how I feel like you should see AI. Oh, this is a new tool that is going to allow us do things differently. That means you must be open to learning. But the reality check is the basic stuff you could do as a junior that you can just junior designer. Sometimes even mid-level to an extent, AI can do that already. Second reality check is even people who are like UI engineers, um, they can basically start, AI can basically start doing your work right now in terms of, not your work, actually start doing your tasks right now in terms of doing code generation, bug fixes, generating cleaner UI than usual. There's an example where Manus was basically able to build a website in 15 minutes, taking details from his spreadsheets. So it was really interesting. It happened recently. I read through it, I was like, huh, and I watched through how this was done. And I played around with Manus a lot, so we'll take a look at how Manus works. Finally, you have to now be more business oriented, right? Understand how business operates is crucial. Designers need to align with like the organizations. You have to cultivate a unique perspective. Understand that AI can generate designs, but again, it lacks a human touch, which means as a designer, you must imprint your unique perspective on your work, and you must actually create work and common decisions that basically resonate on a deeper level with your users. So that means you have to now understand your users. It's not now, I mean, this is a mistake we all make, right? I worked with a company for a bit where a lot of my tasks was not even designing, it was traveling to different countries in Africa to talk to farmers with a contract where I had to support over half a dozen startups who were in the agri-tech sector. And it turns out that up to this day, people still build start talking to users. And I'm talking about people who have raised money, people who are basically either being given grant funding by companies as big as GIZ, and you realize that, oh, these guys have an idea of what they want to solve. It's more like a great vision, but they are not actually talking to these people. And then I ended up talking to farmers themselves or talking to businesses who are either processing this farm produce, depending on if it was a B2B or a B2C or whatever the solution these guys were doing. It I guess to a point where that's something you have to actively do. Talk to people, understand your users, develop a deep business acumen, because my work was not just research and facilitation, it's also business strategy. So I had to be able to develop proper business acumen, cultivate a unique perspective, and stay informed and educated about what the work I was working on. Now, imagine I know that there was a point where I was also able to use AI in that work where I took all of the information I had gotten from the field and I was able to synthesize that information properly, right? It helped me a lot with even coming up with decisions, presenting a lot of my findings to the stakeholders, which was basically the company I worked for, and also the startups I went to help. Now, the thing about this is that having AI do all of this means like teams become leaner. You have to be someone who does multiple things. I know, sadly, there are a lot of designers who are not great at research, but like this is the time for you to step up, right? Because nobody's going to start, most companies are not going to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to hire a researcher, and then I'm going to hire 4 designers, in fact, 2 researchers, 4 designers, then I'll hire someone who does the marketing pages. Most like teams are going to most likely cut a lot of those jobs. So that means you have to someone who does multiple things at the same time with help of AI. But that also means that you do not have to spend hours doing a lot of these things since you already have a tool that is more like a paid intern. I don't like to call AI an unpaid intern because trust me, the unpaid version of AI is crazy. But it's your paid intern that you can actually assign a lot of tasks to, and it helps, it goes a long way. So now, like I've said already, design rules are going to evolve, right? The focus is basically shifting on human strengths like empathy, context, strategy, and creativity. Designers who embrace AI for efficiency while enhancing their human design-centric skills will thrive more in this new era. Basically, there's this phrase I keep saying, which is AI won't take your job. A designer who is better at designing but using AI, or a designer who uses and understands AI, will be the one that will replace you. So AI is not replacing you. So you have to evolve as a person. You have to evolve to understand stuff like business strategy. You have to understand you have to be context awareness. You have to understand systems thinking, which is pretty important. So we're going to look at a few skills that are needed now. Like traditional skills are not obsolete, right? But you have to focus on the things that humans do to excel. Um, so what are some of the essential skills that modern designers need or designers in this AI era? So let's take a look at the technical skills first of all. You have to look at, or you have to understand prompt engineering, right? Prompt engineering is basically the art of hoaxing the best output from AI. It's like the language of the machine, or should I say the syntax of the machine. So as a product designer or as a designer who is trying to prompt your way to a solution or to a visual solution, you have to think about it as, oh, what's the design syntax? Which is interesting because you know how as designers we used to complain that clients don't know what they want. They'll tell us they want us to do something and we do it, and then they're saying, no, this is not what I wanted. It's funny because you kind of understand the frustrations of the client when you start prompting. Because you realize that what you asked the AI for is actually what AI is giving you to an extent, right? AI hallucinates, obviously. But you understand that you need to be very, very specific, refine your prompts, be very direct about what you're saying before you can actually get an output that you can use. All right. So you have to be able to communicate your ideas, how to sketch, you have to be able to sketch a wireframe, obviously. You have to be able to describe what you want to see. It can be as descriptive as saying, hey, I want a page where the header is here, with the icons here, with this here. You have to think visually and also render your thoughts into text, right? Also, you can really go high level, which is, hey, give me a checkout page for a cart. And then you can start applying some of the things that you know. You also have to be very, very fluent in AI, understand the basics of how AI works. Understand what is predictive AI, what is generative AI. You have to understand and get comfortable with working with such data, understanding how this thing work. Obviously, you also have to learn a bit of no-code tools, right? Because it means that you can blend design with coding. It means that you can get to super hyper fidelity faster. A good tool, which I did include in this slide, so I'm going to mention it, is called Bolt. There's this guy that makes content where he says how to design with Figma super fast. So I saw him do something recently where he designed like an onboarding flow and he wanted to test it. Now, instead of testing your Figma prototype, he took that design to Bolt. And I think in a few minutes, he was able to generate code and you can actually test that input. How would people interact with this in the real world, in the real sense? So one, that means you're not wasting engineering efforts trying to validate a design or validate how it will be used in the real world. You're actually testing as fast as possible and seeing like pitfalls that could be there, right? So that's something that you should do. Learn how to use no-code tools or low-code tools also. Picking up a bit of programming is easier these days, especially when you have tools like Cursor and you have IDEs that basically let you access your documentation quickly with code, which is something I wish I had like 8 years ago. Also back to the literacy and data fluency. One of the reasons you need to understand it is because AI obviously will hallucinate at every point in time. So understanding how a model works kind of helps you validate on the extent what is output, how great this output is. Is this really good information for me? Does this make sense? Or is this one of those things where this thing is just being crazy and hallucinating? You can filter out things that are reasonable from things that are not reasonable. So if you get poor input, you'll be like, okay, I kind of expected this. Maybe I could rephrase my prompts. Maybe I could apply context that I have that it doesn't have. Maybe I could update its memory. If you use like ChatGPT a lot or you use like AI tools a lot, you understand some of the things I'm saying where you could ask a question, it's giving you, so you kind of know the answer to an extent, but giving you an answer that is off the mark. So you can tell it some certain things that helps it update its memory and parameters. Funny thing is, I use this a lot for movies where I'm trying to remember a certain conversation. I'm like, okay, I feel this happened in this episode, or what episode is this? And then it describes the episode. I'm like, no, from what you are saying, or from what I remember, this could be from like season two, right? This hasn't happened before. What you are saying, it updates its memory. I'm like, oh, okay, actually, what you're saying makes sense, and then it gets like back on course. Right, so like that's basically updating memory. And when I revisit that conversation again next time, has that update already, that hallucination would happen again. Now think about that also for when you're trying to come up with product PRDs. Basically, that's requirement documents for product requirement documents, right? Or trying to break down the flow. That's something that's pretty important. Another thing you should have is algorithmic thinking, right? It's basically thinking in a structured way. Um, or you're structuring the problems in a way that AI can solve. So, for example, if you use stuff like Stitch.ai, you need to describe the interface in terms like an example is you want a shopping screen with top navigation, a product bar, or a product grid. You want the cart icon to be here, but you want it to be this in a particular position. So by the time you are being descriptive enough, AI understands this. No, again, this ties to the first thing, prompt engineering, but kind of helps, right? So it's like logic and then design. And sometimes it gets to a point where if you understand algorithmic thinking, you can start playing around with tools like Cursor also. Like, okay, if this is done on the front end this way, maybe this hack can do this on the back end. Maybe this is a flow that makes sense. Maybe obviously I should update the total amount on this shopping cart until I have done X, Y, Z. You understand? It kind of helps you think of things in a flow, in a way that's structured. And again, this is something that gets better or gets refined and you understand it being more when you're experimenting yourself, which we'll talk on and touch on for a bit. So breaking down user flows logically basically becomes useful and becomes a superpower. Yes, it also helps you think about things like differently. Finally, you have to understand tool mastery, right? These are the tools of the trade. So continuously, every day, new tools coming out. I'm going to show you some today. But the funny thing about these tools is that, sorry, give me a minute. Funny thing about these tools is that a lot of them have basically changed maybe in the last 24, 48 hours that I was working on this, right? They drop updates all the time. Maybe there's something where you're doing a certain way that is sort of obsolete now, and this is in an improved way. So my best advice is look at the tools I will show you and then play around with them. Um, as an early adopter in any tool, you gain an edge, right? Somebody who was using Illustrator 5 years ago and is still using it basically has an edge and will work faster than somebody who just picks it up now, right? Because you have seen how this grows. So it's the same thing about yeah, you basically have to pick some tools, be an early adopter, play around with them, see them evolve, and see how you can also improve your flow. Great one is I was an early adopter of Manus, and I've been using Manus for quite a while, and it's interesting to see how it handled hacks differently from when I started using it to now. So right now, then it was basically great for deep research, almost if not better than ChatGPT for deep research. Right now, it can go as far as even creating UI for me, building websites for me, and just testing other ideas. Another great one to take a look at is Replits. So yeah, that's enough about technical skills. Next, we should look at is soft skills, right? Now, systems thinking, design ethics and empathy, emotional intelligence and communication, critical thinking, user research and contextual insights, adaptability and lifelong learning. So let's take a look at systems thinking. Now, basically, this helps you comprehend how individual components integrate into broader systems. I think a good example for this would be looking at a city and looking at stuff like traffic congestion in that city, right? Usually you think like, oh, it's a road problem, we need more roads. But it could be more like redoing the city planning. Where are the offices located? Where are the malls located? Where are the homes located? Right? Um, what is public transport availability like? For prices, working hours, school times, and even stuff like, do people work from home more? Can we propose incentives that if companies work from home, they get like a tax break? Why? This is mostly because you want to see how you can reduce congestion on the road, right? So a good one would be if you live in a city that that, okay, there's high congestion. Early in the morning, people are dropping their kids off, and you know that, okay, there'll be high congestion. So you know the times the road will be free. But now, if you don't have that kind of structure and then you have other things running, that means you have a city, Lagos, where there's hold up almost all the time, right? Now, this is not even looking at the problem. This is just trying to show you how looking at the bigger picture, but looking at those components that from the bigger picture kind of helps your systems thinking, right? So you have to see how individual elements fit into each other. And this is great also when you're thinking about products, right? So um, now let's talk about ethics and empathy. Now, AI wouldn't consider what's right or fair. It basically looks at data patterns, which is biased or insensitive. A good example is there's an article I was reading in 2018. Now, first of all, AI has been around for a while. Then it was just basically referred to as ML models. And there was this ML model that was trained um, to, for lack of a better word, pass judgment on a case. And how it worked was I would feed you the details or the evidence again that's presented um, against the what's the word again? Defendant or plaintiff, or basically someone is before a judge and these are all of the information about this person's case, right? And I wanted an AI to pass judgment on this person. And one thing we found that is the judgment was biased based on skin color, which is also a problem that people have in like real world, right? For the same crime, a white person most likely will serve a lower sentence for that crime than a black person would. And people are like, oh, that's not fair. But and someone was like, yeah, I understand that that's not fair, but like this AI is not being unfair on purpose. The biases that you have that exist basically comes from the data that is fed. I also remember around that same period, the girl at Google, sadly I can't remember her name, who had to do a lot of work in raising awareness to help OpenCV as cameras powered by AI see black faces. To shock you that for the longest times, cameras couldn't actually recognize the black face. It would be faster to unlock your phone with a white face or to unlock things with a white face than the black face. Now, this was work that was done years ago by people. And now because of biases, a lot of these models were trained on white faces. Now, these are things you should also look at. When I am creating a design, when I'm prompting a design with AI, what are some of the biases that would exist, right? So you have to become a guardian of ethics, right? You have to make sure that your design is a bit more inclusive. Things like privacy, transparency, and inclusivity are things that you should take into consideration when designing, because for some of the work you are doing, this may not be taken into consideration, and that's why you have to still be the human hand that's there. Now, what we should look at next is emotional intelligence and communication. Successful designers will translate AI outputs into narratives that resonate with people. As tasks get automated, now designers have to spend more time collaborating, leading conversations, and communicating complex ideas. Your ability to work with others is basically something that you need. You should also be able to articulate your design decisions. So, for instance, you may want to use an AI tool to crunch user data and find the pattern. But explaining that insight to another designer, to your boss, will take a lot of time, right? It also kind of opens unnecessary questioning. Now, high EQ basically helps you translate and balance this perspective. So how do you know what to say to who? If I'm talking to engineers, I can speak to them in their terminologies to basically get faster insights. I don't want to start sound like someone who is dumbing things down and sound condescending. But if I'm talking to stakeholders, I want to talk in things that they understand, like numbers, like basically metrics that they care about, right? I also want to be someone who creates a bridge in my presentation for everyone to understand what I'm saying. So that's something you need to be able to do as a designer right now. You need to hone in on your communication skills, right? Like present your solution. There's a job I applied for, actually last place I worked where I was in a bit of traveling. When I was given a design task to do, what I did was when I was done with the design task, designing and doing all of my research, I did two things. First thing I did was write out my thought process. This was what I understood by the task. This was my approach, right? And I documented and wrote everything down, attaching screenshots of what was there before, what I have done, And the time I was done documenting that, I also created a Loom video. So the Loom video basically was also now breaking down, it was basically me talking, breaking down my process, showing before, after, decisions I made, referencing to text, and then I submitted both of that. And the guy was like, this is basically one of the most professional submissions I have gotten from this tax so far, but there are a lot of other people on the line. But all of that, it was nothing special. It was just like clear communication. For me, there's no such chance over communication. You have to be able to keep breaking down what you are saying, add as much visual references as you need, add as much images, context, numbers, whatever would help people understand better, whatever will help deepen the understanding, that would be great, right? And that leads us to critical thinking and asking the right questions. Critical thinking is another superpower. AI can basically give you a billion suggestions, right? Or even give fully formed designs. But as a designer, your work is basically judging these outputs and curating the outputs. You need to keep asking questions. Does this actually solve the right problem? There's no such thing as a stupid question. Thankfully, with ChatGPT and the rest, everybody has the ability to ask whatever question comes to their head. I saw a joke the other day where someone was like, you can go to my browser history, you can go to my phone, my contacts, but I'm not going to allow you to go through my conversation history with ChatGPT because people can ask any form of questions there, and which is great, right? You can get as much clarity and context as you want if you keep asking questions, if you look at output and observe them. So a very good question to ask basically is, these are giving me the right solution, but are we addressing the user's underlying need? You understand? Don't just take suggestion of AI's hook, line, and sinker. You need people who question these suggestions or outputs. If I take everything as a suggestion, and be like, okay, maybe advice. I'm not taking this to the bank completely. I'm going to weigh this against what I have, the context that I have, right? Which now brings me to user research. Now, you cannot form or have context if you've not done user research. User research, I don't think I have to explain that. Basically, it involves also asking open-ended questions that gives you a good amount of understanding that AI can never do. This basically means you go into the fields, talking to people, interfacing with the stakeholders that you're designing for, which is mostly that the businesses, which is basically business and users, right? What does the business want? What does the user want? What does the business want to do? What's the bridge in between? All of understanding this context and knowing all of this kind of helps you to realize, does this output that I've gotten from this artificial intelligence, generative AI thingy, does it make sense for what I want? What do I take from this to refine? Um, Now, in working with classic AI tools, asking questions or giving precise prompts yields better results, right? Which we saw in the last one about prompt engineering. So a good example is generate 5 alternative layout focusing on accessibility for low vision users. So imagine we're actually designing this product I designed called Ebi. It was basically for elderly people in an estate to be able to ask for help. Now, if your first prompt or your first approach was, hey, I want to design I want to design a software or an app that people in an estate can use to design, can use to ask for help and make requests, it will give you something, obviously. But when you have the context of, oh, majority of people in this place are actually elderly, so I have to design something that has better accessibility, requires less of an input, and obviously is very, very visible for them. That would basically refine the kind of outputs you get. And then you can also now look at other outputs and say, okay, this particular layout and flow makes sense. But now combining this with my understanding that people have visibility problems, like low vision, basically, what kind of solution would I come up with? I like to say that in the past, we start from a black canvas when we are designing, but where I basically have a proper starting point that you can start refining. So you can even start focusing on stuff like maybe even art direction and other form bits, right? From the visual angle, when you already have like your components ready from AI. You're basically not going to say, okay, I have an understanding as a designer, I have a context as a designer, I've gotten this output. Let me put all of this together and start creating something that's actually useful. So the skill of inquiry and being able to ask questions and being able to have insights will basically differentiate you. Um, Finally, you need to learn. And the first thing that you should do is learning how to learn, right? You need to be adaptable. Learn continuously, look at new tools, look at new processes, And there's some things you most likely disagree with that are out there. I know that because of your own ethics in design, there are a few things I disagree with. There's things I also disagree with because I don't fully understand them. And I feel like maybe adding them right now may be disruptive. But you should also be open to saying, hey, I want to understand this better. You're either an informed hater. I don't like this because I understand it properly, or you're someone who does hate something because you don't understand it fully. Again, you could also have a valid reason for not wanting to include something. There are organizations who are very finicky about their use of AI or their acceptance of AI because of the kind of data they have. So you also need to be very careful what you include, right? But I believe that one thing that will set you apart, a soft skill, is seeing this as a challenge, right? Figuring out how to solve problems differently and how to have the ability to learn um, to solve problems that you see already existing. Now, if you're in an organization where things take longer than usual because of a process that feels broken, it will be a great opportunity for you and your own to actually experiment and see how you can optimize this. Now, this is you learning with the context you have of your organization, the work that needs to be done, and how can I make things faster. Now, this is going to point me towards what I'm going to talk to next, right? As a designer who works in-house. But if you're someone who learns a lot and experiments a lot, that means you can actually come up with a process that people can adapt company-wide. That wouldn't happen if you're just showing up to do just, hey, I'm just here to do my job and nothing else. I don't even care about learning new stuff. I don't care about this AI thing we're talking about. You need to see how you can use these tools to optimize yourself. Now, how do you stay creative and competitive in an AI world? First of all, you have to say that AI is your co-pilot, not your replacement. We've done a lot of talk about how AI helps you, right? So you have to look at it as not something that's threatening, but something that is going to help you come up with ideas faster. So, for example, an AI tool can basically give you 100 logo variations, right? You can pick stuff from that, put together. With your understanding of the brief, you can now see how you are getting, or you can create something that's close to what you want. Now, I mean, I have friends who are brand designers and logo designers, and I've seen their process, right? It's basically drawing 30 to 50 different sketches, looking at stuff online, looking at other things to inspire them, and then combining stuff together also with the understanding of the brief. Now, this is you basically cutting the time. You can still do some of your sketches, upload them to whatever GPT engine, and then you can now start refining and creating ideas and say, hey, what can I combine? What fits into the strategy, right? You can look at it and mentally say, okay, number 5 and number 7 makes sense. Let me combine these two to see what I can come up with. And you can also just do that on the machine itself. Now, if you treat AI as a brainstorm body, which is something like I do a lot, you'd see that first of all, the problem of designers block doesn't it's not like present anymore. You can basically go from zero to something and actually just start brainstorming and talking. You can explore faster. So that means you are working faster. Remember, a lot of the solutions to problems you have is found in motion, not while you're just sitting down stuck. Thinking is great, but also thinking and acting in motion helps you solve problems faster. Now you have to maintain your unique voice, right? Don't let any AI basically grab your voice or grab your own touch. If you know me, for example, I used to be called Modia Big Buttons, right? So or something called Modia Buttons. Now that could be a unique touch. I mean, that's a joke, but like, what are the things that is your perspective in design as a person that you think should be included that you don't want AI to yank away from you? Now, the thing is that AI always look generic, right? AI is not the best at art direction. Trust me, I have tried. When you have your own unique approach to how you design things, how you do things, and you have a good understanding of the problem out of research, out of what the work you've done. Now, even though you've done a lot of work with AI, there is that uniqueness that is there, that is present, that people can see, right? AI is monotonous because it's trained on common patterns, but your job is always prevent this monotonous looking UI by injecting yourself. A very common example of things you use AI is almost half of the things you will generate or half of the UIs you will ask it for is mostly going to be blue and white, right? You don't want that. That's not what you're doing. You want your visual style. You want your patterns to be there. You want your icons and buttons to look a certain way. You want your flow and interactions to feel a certain way. So it's basically, how do I make this mine, right? How do I add a custom interaction or illustration that feels more playful, that feels more serious, that feels more sleek? A good example is you can design two operating systems have a contacts page and a page for calling, right? The one for Apple and the one for Android. So I am a beta tester of most iOS apps, and Liquid Glass is a different feel and interaction than how it feels on the Android, because I also have an Android device. And if I was to ask AI to do the exact same app with feature, what's going to give me is different, right? Now, if I wanted to now go lean towards the iOS directive, I could say, okay, I'm going to impute a lot of refraction, a lot of that fluidity that comes with the Liquid Glass look, but I also want the playful look that comes with material design. Now that's not me infusing my own voice right into something. Um, Leverage AI for repetitive tasks. There are things that are annoying and repetitive, right? I feel like you should give that to AI. So a great one, in fact, a good example here is color team trials. Color is great. I have a color book that's popping this right now. But it's one of the most annoying things to actually have to sit down and come up with sometimes, right? Color pairings, give me 10 different shades of this color, all of that. So like all of the routine work that gets annoying, you can give that to AI, right? So shift from being a product worker, like a production worker on that line, that production line of basically hammering things, to someone who is um a creative director, right? And which allows you basically say, hey, how can I generate multiple of these things and test them? So instead of using weeks to create 5 different variations of something and then having to test that again across another week, you can mostly do some of that in, I don't know, one a day or one evening, right? And then you're not moving towards answering questions like prior human judgment, test, and interaction. So let's use our time for things that are very important. So let's put it less pixel pushing and more problem solving. And again, double down on the human insights. I cannot overstate this enough. Why? Because it's important to see that the human insights influences the design that's there, right? Keep doing user research, have conversations with real people, like basically keep things in context. Um, Perhaps in interviews, you notice that maybe users hesitate to take a step because of something, maybe for an emotional reason. So a very good one is if people are having drop-offs in an app, it and you're like, oh, why is the drop-off happening? AI will not understand that, oh, it's happening because it's on the BVM page, and there's nothing that explains to people why they should give you their BVN. Especially as banks tell you, don't share your BVN with everybody. In the early days of BVN, drop-off rate was absurdly high. I remember when Usman had to drop an article that was very interesting. It was basically like advising designers on how to reduce drop-off rate, which basically included adding like copy that basically assured users that, hey, we're not using, this is what we are using your BVN for, and also it could be that we have been given permission by the bank or by the CBN to be able to use this. So basically design that will reduce drop-off and basically help people. And that's human insight that you can never give, right, to AI, that AI doesn't have basically. So armed with these insights, you can design a solution that addresses not just functional needs, but emotional needs also. These are the kind of solutions that are hard for AI to conceptualize because they require empathy within the between the lines and basically understanding certain context of how people work. So for a good again, in that example, the context is people are finicky or very, very guarded about stuff like their social security number, their NIN, their BVN. Finally, play, be curious, be playful, create random things that does not even make any sense, right? Play with Midjourney, play with GPT, play with Sora, combine and create things that are playful. The good thing about play, right? If you've had pets before, you notice that, especially if you had cats, you notice that cats play a lot when they're young. But the funny thing is that that's how they learn how to hunt, how to be alert. Same thing with bears, same thing with some birds. But the thing is that playing basically helps you build those muscles. There are stuff that I've played around with on AI generative tools that when I started using them to design actual products, I was like, oh, I've done this before when I was experimenting. Oh, okay, now this is how I can incorporate this on this project I'm doing for this client, right? It's very, very important to play and just experiment. When you're not doing anything, AI is your sandbox. Play around with it. Ask it to critique your work. Ask it for prompts that can take you out of a rut. Um, Use it to create the most weird looking UIs or looking patterns or looking 3D objects. Now going forward, you see some AI generated shapes that I added in the presentation just to see how you can understand prompt engineering better, how you can get feedback, how you can impute um, more of what you want, refine more of what you want. And this happens from play, not from actually just doing client work, right? Scribbles basically, there's something I wrote here that says um, AI helps with ideation and sparking thoughts and cultivating an attitude of expression, right? So if you're someone who has a scrapbook and has like draws and scribbles a lot, you realize that scribbles basically help you shape ideas and not necessarily something that you're going to use at the end of the day, but it kind of helps you get there. Before I go any further into career strategies for junior designers, are there any questions that you want me to take?
Yeah, I think we can continue. We'll take questions at the end then.
All right, awesome. All right. Creative strategies for junior designers. The first thing as a designer is you have to master the fundamentals, right? So you have to know the basics of design. Like you cannot say because AI is going to give me this layout. You shouldn't know how it works, right? Core principles like typography, color, user research, even as you use AI, right? It's great to have a solid design thinking foundation. For example, AI can generate a color palette for you, but if you don't understand color theory, that's rubbish, right? It's like you don't know what you're doing. AI is basically going to be in one in control of the design, right? You should always make sure that you visit the basics to find the basics. Now, this is for junior designers. I'm sure that me, that junior designers in the house, basically know how important the basics are. The basics is your foundation. I think all I'm going to say on this is you cannot be the house without a solid foundation. The kind of height you want to get to as a designer really depends on how deep your foundation is. So study typography, spacing, usability heuristic, do few design projects like the old-fashioned way without AI itself, right? So we can do this thing where you design something end to end without AI, and then you come back again and say, hey, let's take a different approach by using AI, right? And it will basically accelerate your process, but because now you have a firm understanding of the fundamentals. Now build AI infused projects. You are someone who basically wants to be seen as an AI designer, right? Or a designer who understands AI. So infuse that into the kind of project you do. I'm not saying every project should be about AI, but showing how you use AI or using AI in your projects helps you learn new tricks. So I got a pet dog recently, and teaching new tricks made me remember the saying where you cannot teach an old dog new tricks, or it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks because I mean it's easier to just train Zuri and tell her to do shake your paw, like shake your hand, sit, roll over, stuff like that because she's new. But imagine a dog that is old that you haven't ingrained all of those things into, it's going to be harder, right? I'm saying this because for senior designers who have been doing things a certain way or are stuck doing things a certain way. As a junior designer who is basically every like waking day, your practice, your learning is very AI infused. You kind of understand and you can start creating things differently than someone who hasn't started adopting AI. Obviously, they would have a bit more understanding and stuff like strategic thinking, business acumen that you will do. But when it comes to the grunt work of creating stuff quickly with AI, that's something you do, right? So, yes, show your skills and show how you use AI to basically do this. Use it to demonstrate how resourceful you are and how you take a modern approach to problem solving. For an example is you can design a non-profit, an NGO's website as a personal project. You can use ChatGPT to generate like initial personas to refine the content. You can use Midjourney to do some new imagery that they don't have. You can use the UI Wizard or UI Wizard to basically create a mockup that you would then refine, right? So in your case study on what you are doing, you can explain your thought process and some of the tools you used and you used to come up with this kind of sort of outputs. Mentorship and networking. I was reluctant to talk about this because I think most people see mentorship wrongly. People see mentorship as going to meet some dude who you feel is better or has grown and you want him to keep you accountable. I think that's the wrong approach to mentorship. One thing I should add to this is networking sometimes actually more important. And networking not vertically, but horizontally. Networking with a lot of my growth as a designer, a lot of my success as a designer came from basically networking horizontally with my friends, right? Chukwuka and Abayomi, works basically were people who sort of grew together, were designing together, and I mean, we are great designers now. Look at the work they are doing, but like we still have us looking at people who were greater than us. Oh, this boss. Let me, It was like, oh, we are trying to solve problems together. We're working on stuff together. I remember when myself and Prince Philemon would be on calls for hours, especially during the pandemic. We could be on a 6, 7 hour call. We're designing and I'm doing something like, don't even try this one because I mean, he's a brand designer. I had a very good understanding of like typography and layout. And like, I'm trying out something like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. And then he's doing something for a product. And I go like, oh no, as a product designer, you shouldn't do things this way. This is basically us giving each other feedback, networking and building stronger bonds together. And then we started working page jobs together, we started doing stuff together, right? So that kind of networking is also quite important. Obviously, you should also join design communities, right? But finding mentor is also great, right? You can find a mentor on ADP lists. A mentor, or maybe if you keep sharing your work, you find someone who's interested in you, especially your AI interest, right? See things that they have written. They could have written an article on something and you could actually apply what you've seen them talk about. And like, hey, I read, and then you can approach them now. You're not approaching them as, oh, teach me, mentor me. It's like, oh, I saw this article you wrote on how I could use AI to create a better workflow or how I can build like a voice powered chatbot for XYZ. And I tried it out in my project and it went really well. I also like some insights from you. Now, this is you basically one validating what they have done. And also like building a relationship that shows that, hey, I can put in the work because a lot of times like people running away from mentoring other people is people walk up to them and say, hey, I want to be mentored, but realize that people who are asking for mentorship do not put in the work. And then you can also basically join communities like Slack and Discord where you see where you meet people, where you can join design bodies and all of that. I would show you a few of the websites later, but it's quite important to see how you can network in a way that allows you grow and not in a way that makes you become a border. And obviously be visible, share your learning journey, talk about stuff that interests you. Um, I like to call it evangelism. All right. For Christians, for example, evangelism is something that we're encouraged to do. You have to become an evangelist of your work. And evangelism to me, right, can also be like, remember, if you've ever lived in a place where in the morning there's one guy carrying a megaphone, just preaching and talking. That should be you about AI. That should be you about your work. That should be you about your learning journey. Those are the things that concern you because I mean we are loud and vocal about stuff that we are watching or that we have seen. You could watch Trust today and you're talking about it, you're loud about it. You could watch a movie today that's like popping in popular culture. Or we're talking about it. Oh, Red Circle is so good. This movie is so good. That's great, right? Talk about that also with your work. Be visible, share your journey. Things that you find funny in AI, talk about them. Things that you find if Elon Musk says something that you sound weird, talk about it. If Grok has released something that's basically great for workflow, write about it. Be visible, share your design journey. Let people see that you have grown, right? I want to see your design perspective. Also try to articulate what you have learned, right? This doesn't just help you solidify your understanding, but also helps you demonstrate communication skills. My early days as a designer, if you check my Medium page, I wrote a lot about what I was learning. I'd written an article. In fact, funny thing is, there's an article I wrote in 2018, 2019 on human-centered design. And an international organization wants me to host a seminar on teaching that and prototyping in like to some of their cohort members. And that's when I'm like, oh, this is what I wrote when I was learning to basically solidify my understanding. And right? Like how many years down the line, this is why someone is reaching out to you. So be loud and visible about your journey. Talk about stuff you know. It helps you really solidify your knowledge. Um, Writing, whether to share or for yourself, is basically a great way of thinking. Writing helps you think, right? If someone said something one time, this like a side joke, someone says on Twitter, when I was at Twitter, he said, if most people just sat down and would write a 1,000 word essay on the opinions that they're holding on strongly on Twitter, they'll realize that those opinions are not strongly or well formed, right? Like sit down and just write 1,000 words of your thinking. Like, let me see your thinking. You realize that okay, there are holes in this particular theory you hold. That helps you also as a designer. Like maybe holes and things you don't understand fully. And when you're writing, it helps you do a bit more research, right? Which is a great thing to have. And I know that research with AI is pretty fast, which is good. Use it for research, but also try to write down and see the holes and gaps in your knowledge, and then you can plug those holes by researching and understanding a bit more. So yeah, that's what sharing your journey does, right? And also, I mean, this is something that's also a good icebreaker, a good thing to share in an interview as a junior designer. Like, hey, I remember I wrote an article about the way I'm filming with AI, and this is what I did. This is stuff I learned. It's just you talking about yourself and being very confident and articulate. Now, remember, as a junior designer in the AI age, you have the chance to grow up with these tools as second nature, right? That basically means it's second nature for you to use AI tools as a designer. Even me that's talking right now, sometimes I need to remember that, okay, what AI tool should I use right now? Or I would have gone a bit further, whereas, I probably use AI for this. Well, God, I've not really used this layer, so I started doing one. And I'm like, there should be an AI tool for this now. I remember one day I was doing something and the interior designer basically showed me something on Figma, like, okay. I didn't know it was done this way, right? Because it's second nature for him, right? It's coming in where there's a lot of information, there's a lot of stuff going on. So he's keeping things, he's more abreast with stuff. He's just trying things out. So it's second nature to these people, right? So I believe that if you make it second nature for you, you would grow faster. And before you know, you would be a mid designer, and then you start looking at strategies for um, a mid designer who wants to go in AI. Now, when you've got to this point, it's more like leadership, sort of, right? For mid-level designers, you have some years of experience already, and you're looking to advance to a more senior position, or maybe even leadership. Now, you're wondering how you want to navigate such growth when AI is changing workflows every day. Now, these are some of the things that are tailored to you. By the way, all of these UI elements, all these visual elements are AI generated. Now, you have to shift focus from to strategy, like from just like pixel pushing to strategy and big picture work, right? Now you have to think about your execution skills. AI making execution faster for me. Is it reducing the grunt work? Am I using this as a springboard to get involved in more strategic projects? Am I able to be more impactful in the organization because I work faster? Right. So for example, if a junior with the help of AI can handle the production of variants for a feature of a UI, maybe you can actually start doing the design critique and coordinate with the product managers and align maybe the features for user needs. So you're not thinking more high level. It's like, okay, these are the things that are actually needed. I'm talking to the PMs, I'm doing research, I'm talking to users to get more context, and I'm basically distilling all of this information clearly down to the joint designer who is basically using AI to do most of the repetitive work. Now, this time also helps you volunteer for tasks like redefining the UX approach of a new product or improving the design of that team using AI. Or you can even really like lead the research project, something that's complex. Now, this signals to people up there that, hey, you're thinking beyond just your individual deliverables. You're thinking towards how you can optimize a lot of processes within the organization. So companies basically still love human insights, and understanding human behavior is basically great for business. It's good for business, right? And this is your decision making, which you can do because you now have a lot of, I don't say a lot of free time, but because you have a lot more time to do more in-depth work, it's something that will help you grow within the organization. Also does help businesses see you as somebody who is forward thinking, right? Because you're coming up with decisions that align with business strategy. Now, if you can position yourself as someone who has that strategic thinking, um, you can now brand yourself as a product thinker, a design strategist. It basically gives you that boost, that gives you that it's a word I'm looking for, that reputation as being someone who is a hands-on designer, but is also somebody who considers the different variables that are important to helping a product or a business grow. So basically, the strategy is something that you need to work on or evolve to. So you're no longer a pixel pusher, somebody who is doing good work. You're not looking at how can I produce a solution in a way that enhances our outputs. Now, become the AI champion of your team. I believe kind of also explained this before, but basically become the go-to person when there's a new design tech right there. Like if you have experimented, like if you have used tools like there's this tool called Figma Magician. Hold on, let me see if I can actually show you guys that one. Um, right, Figma Magician is pretty interesting because apparently it's a tool that allows you uh create designs and icons and stuff like that by just generating. Now, if you've used tools like that, and people know that, okay, once there's an AI tool out there, Moody is the guy you should go for. He's basically experimenting with stuff. You should basically make sure that it's loud enough for people within your organization to know that, okay, I'm your guy. I'm the person you can come to for this. I'm the person you can say, oh, this is the tool we should use. This is what we shouldn't use. This happens in engineering teams a lot sometimes where certain engineers who are going to a particular prominence are the ones who advise what tools they should use, what stacks they should use, right? Um, so you should basically also see how you can do. There's this thing, yeah. There's this thing called Figma Office or Office Hours. I know Figma used to do it, but I know that there are some companies who also do it. You can decide to do, hey, office hours, like there's no meeting on Wednesday between 11:30 to 12. Hey, for those who are interested, so compulsory, I'm doing like an office hours on this new team and how I can improve our workflow. So you're talking about this, or Figma drop this new AI tool, or this new AI tool is out that can improve our workflow as both product managers and designers. Host office hours on that, but basically be the person who champions the use of AI or who champions the use of modern tools in the workplace, but in a way that's not disruptive because sometimes introducing new tools can be disruptive to internal processes that people have worked on or created, which is where your experimentation and playfulness comes in, right? So if you have done your homework on how this isn't disruptive, you can now start hosting a class or office hours that basically teaches people how to basically use this. Align design with business outcomes. Obviously, now you are no longer a pixel pusher. Like I've said, this basically means that everything you are doing with the help of AI, with the help of strategy, with the help of understanding context, with all the soft skills you have gathered, right? Basically aligns the business outcome. So when you can tie a design enhanced by AI to a business, so for example, we delivered 2 times faster or improve retention by 10%, you're indispensable, right? You don't have to start speaking numbers. Okay, like, I like that business people understand numbers, and people always think that numbers is money, but it's also in terms of time saved. Because time saved is money. So, an example is we delivered the prototype for this fintech app or for this fintech feature in 3 days instead of 2 weeks. Basically, accelerate our time to market. We're able to test faster. We do no longer have possible drop-off rates from XYZ because we're able to actually test faster in-house, right? And we've been able to push either in record time or even before the time that was given to us to push. Or we tested 10 variations with AI and found that engagement increased 50% by 15% more than an A/B test. Now, all of this basically helps you create a strong case study for both your design decisions and adoption of these methods, right? So you can show people are reluctant to use these AI tools, and you can show that in numbers that using this basically helps you iterate faster, go to market faster, validate things faster and better. It's not a strong case because I mean, what business doesn't want to do more work or do more for less inputs? So the KPIs are important to your work, align with your product manager, and also understand how success is measured, right? This will help you basically refine what you do. And frame your work, especially in your portfolio and in meetings, especially when you're even doing performance review. So, for example, you can say by using AI, using AI testing tools, identified UX issues faster. We helped me reduce user drop off by 10% in our funnel. Now, this is something that we leadership listens to. They're like, okay, It's a partner in the business. This is not somebody that just a pixel pusher. This is somebody that has a reputation for solving problems differently. Obviously, mentorship and leading with empathy is important. Now, you have not become that go-to person in the community or in the organization. You now need to learn how to bring people up, right? We rise by lifting others. You find a junior designer and you're curious about AI. Pair up this person and show them how to approach a task with AI. Now, this,
Hi, how are you? How are you doing?
sorry? Okay, I think someone is unmuted. Now, these are things, right? It establishes you as an AI leader, someone who grows others. Also reinforces your expertise. Teaching is the best way to learn something. Now, by mentoring, you practice crucial skills like giving feedback, communication, and like empathy with someone else's growth journey. Communication is learned by doing continuously. If you're able to give clear, structured feedback to a designer, you're also able to translate some of those skills into giving or articulating your decisions properly. Now, these are skills you need to grow into a lead role, right? So you don't have to wait for a manager to build this. You don't have to wait to be a manager to build this skill. Start now so that you can be seen as someone that, okay, this person has actually got into this point. Lastly, again, which ties into learning, explore new frontiers, right? Um, AI creates new domains for design for us. It doesn't just impact like how we do things right now. So for example, yesterday I was playing around with Flora and I was watching a video also and I found out that Flora is also a pretty good tool for VFX. Now in the hands of a layman, you can do like basic VFX now, but in the hands of a VFX artist, you can basically start doing things that help you with compositing. Now, so this is kind of leaning towards filmmaking, but instead of the hours you would spend on creating certain things with the traditional tools for creating stuff like an explosion or creating a CG background. You can do a lot of this on Flora and then bring them into your tools and blend them seamlessly, right? It makes me wonder what is there for the future. If somebody wakes up tomorrow and like, hey, I love art, but I'm going to use AI to learn how to create a lot of these CG background, these CG characters, these CG things, and then somebody who is a compositor also can pick up this skill and then merge them together, right? Now, to come back to design that we all know, for instance, a voice interface is like a big area of AI assistance, right? As far back as when Google Assistant was getting big. But now, if this intrigues you, try something like that, right? If you're passionate about visual design, see how you can do visual design with AI. I saw Design Chief Priest posted something on LinkedIn recently. I think he should have a webinar maybe tomorrow or later today, where he builds like an AI voice assistant that acts as a follow-up or acts as someone you talk to in church. So, for example, you are feeling down, you have like a AI voice assistant that is built for being able to interact with church members just to encourage them, pray with them, stuff like that. So that's a very interesting niche and product. But think about also how you could do this for I don't know if you guys know Intercom. So for like your customer support on the app that you build for your organization, someone has a problem. Instead of even typing and waiting, they can start conversing with an AI assistant who is like a customer rep on the app while actually waiting for a real assistant to free up time and get to them if the work that's required needs human input, right? So that's something that's pretty interesting. So you can say, hey, I like building processes, or I am exploring building stuff that will help customers feel like they can always have access to us better, right? And there are a lot of different things that you can apply AI in for VR, AR, especially I'm more attuned towards augmented reality because I feel caged in for VR, but see how you can um, come up with ideas or research things that you can combine with this AI that you're already learning now. I mean, you're mid-level tending towards senior already, right? This means that you can actually start experimenting and talking about what you do, and seeing how you can include this into your solutions that you build. Very funny thing that came to my mind, which I remember. I saw something really interesting. There's a Nigerian who works in one of the banks in Dubai, one of the big UAE banks, and he was responsible for the design of their AR app for banking. So imagine building something like this is built already, right? A bank application that is accessible via augmented reality where you can move money around, do transactions. Now think about how you can start infusing different things that you or skills that you have picked up from AI. Now again, these are just all like interesting things you can do. AI in health is a very big one. A Poco Doctors released Our Doctor, which basically democratizes access to healthcare by basically having something as simple as WhatsApp or Telegram, right? So people may not have access to GPT as much as you think, but they have access to WhatsApp. And somebody has basically built a streamlined LLM that would help answer questions, would take visual input, audio input, and text inputs to help with telemedicine and like basic consultation. So you can say, hey, I want to be a designer in healthcare, but I want to use AI to push this frontier. Right. So yeah. Up next, we're going to talk about building a portfolio, personal branding and portfolio. Because I mean, what's the use of knowing all of this if you can't talk about it? So showcase your problem solving. Now you have to take the output portfolio that you have straight away and then start a new a new one. Because you have to revamp your portfolio to highlight case studies that tell a story, emphasize emphasize a problem, and shows how you basically solve them using AI, right? Um, Employers are less impressed by the sleek visuals because I mean that's everywhere, and they are more interested in your problem-solving journey. They want to know how you identify the problem and the tools you used effectively to drive meaningful results. Now, I mean, not just AI, this is like in general, right? So make sure each project reflects and reads like a story of design thinking. Start with the context and problem. Users were dropping off and onboarding by 40%. Then talk about how you approached it. I conducted interviews and then used ChatGPT to draft some questions for those interviews. I also took the input from that and was able to see proper insights. I was able to see patterns from the responses, and then I scoped the solutions with an AI tool. I tried variations, tested them, and then I picked this particular one. And based on our design language in-house, I was able to come up with this solution, right? And now the outcome could be onboarding drop-off rate improved by 20%. And this is what I learned. I learned that one of the reasons people were dropping off was because they were being asked questions they felt were too personal. So for example, they were being asked by their BVN. Even those who wanted to give their BVN didn't know how to get it. So I realized that by showing that dialing star this will show your BVN. Also reassuring them that we are been approved by CBN to use this, and like we are a bank who has XYZ license. I was able to reduce drop-off rates, but I only noticed that this was a problem when I basically loaded all of the responses I'd gotten into GPT that basically made me see some of the patterns that were there. Basically, you're telling a story in a very interesting way, and you're also showing how you were basically important, right? A hiring manager can basically ask you questions like, have you used any of the new AI design tools? And this is your time to shine, right? And basically telling that story would help them realize that, okay, you use the tools and you also know how to use them to solve problems, right? So showcasing your problem solving skill is pretty important. Again, demonstrate continuous learning. I don't even have to sit on this anymore because we've been talking about this, but like show how you are basically someone who keeps learning and who keeps upgrading. That could be on LinkedIn. You're taking courses on IDF. You are active on the design community. You're talking about that on LinkedIn and all of that. So continuous learning is something that professional, okay, this person is always learning. Now, thought leadership and sharing. Now, I feel like this part is really self-explanatory. But basically, write about your experiences, talk about your opinions, right? Thought leadership isn't something that's just for seniors or something. Honestly, your opinions are important. Your opinion as a junior senior designer is as important as that of senior designer because you are seeing life differently. You may not have certain context, which is fine. You will learn. If your opinion is wrong, it's wrong. Learn from it and move on. But don't be afraid to share or say what you think based on what you understand right now. Talking online, apart from when you get past the trolls, kind of helps you deepen your understanding or broaden your understanding. I can have an opinion based on my understanding of something and based on my own particular ethics, right? And somebody can say, "Oh, okay, I see what you're saying, but this is why this is good." I may agree, I may not agree, but basically, people knowing that you have a voice and you're able to think through things is quite important. It makes you realize that you are active in this particular space, right? So, um, I have an episode coming up recently on ethics. I'll post it on YouTube soon on AI and ethics, right? Where it was basically me being concerned about how 4 or 5 years ago, deepfakes were basically banned, quote unquote, because of the potential harm that it could cause, identity theft, making fake videos of someone doing things that they obviously didn't do. So it was like more or less restrictive tech. And recently I realized that there's now tech that can basically become your AI doppelganger. Basically, this is running on deepfake technology, right? I can basically feed it a whole script and it's talking to the camera and producing content. I can produce like 8 videos in a day. All I'm doing is feeding the script and the AI avatar of me that looks exactly like me is basically saying those words and basically has my voice. And I was like, this is weird. Like this is for me, that's like an ethical boundary, an ethical boundary, right? And this is something you can talk about. Now, I see how it could help content creators generate content faster. I see how it could help marketing teams generate stuff faster. I also see how it can be a problem. Now, this is stuff I am talking about. You can have other things that you're looking at that you can talk about. It could be like designing ethically with AI, lessons I learned from a recent project. You can talk about how you notice certain biases that are infused in AI that you solved for and how you're able to use your human understanding to navigate that and design and also addressing the bias that was in like the AI outputs. You can start a Substack, a newsletter, and a YouTube channel. Talk about you can be someone who just talks about new tools, right? I do that a lot on my WhatsApp and try just talk about tools, new AI tools. Basically, be consistent about what you are saying, right? Which brings us to personal branding and consistent. Ensure that your brand is consistent if you are talking about, if you only say about tools, constantly talking about tools. Here and there, you can talk about certain processes, but hey, I want to that if I go to this guy's page, I go to this girl's page, I'm seeing tools on AI. Like I know AI tools that are new that can help me with my processes. Then I can go to another person's page and she's talking about how you can basically, she's not talking about tools, but she's talking about more about refining your processes and building your processes. You want to be consistent about what you are saying, which is basic branding advice. But also you can just be somebody who's experimenting. It doesn't have to be that today you have to find your niche. You can experiment, talk about different things and find out what you're comfortable talking about, right? Um, make sure your online presence also reflects that okay, this is who you are. You're someone who is very pro AI, right? Focus on your unique voice. Be authentic. Being authentic basically means you're sticking to stuff that you are more in tune with. I'm a product designer and a filmmaker. There's really nothing that concerns me about looking at AI tools or talking about AI tools for weeks that do with AI and music or lending my voice to what's going on with Timbaland and his desire to use AI to create music. That's not my niche, not to concern me with that one. Right. Let me talk about things that are important to me that are in tune with what I do. Like that's what people should see when they're looking for AI news. Um, I know somebody who talks about, in fact, a lot of his AI conversations is about companies that have raised in AI. So like, oh, companies raise XYZ amount. It's talking about the company does. So if I know that if I want to um learn what the new tools that are getting funded in AI today, I'll look at his newsletter, I'll look at his WhatsApp status. I know that I'm going to find that there. That now brings us to tools of the trade. AI design tools that you need to know and use wisely. Flora. So let's go. Let me quickly take you here. Flora is an infinity canvas. If you're someone who has ever designed before, you will know that Flora, who has not designed before, you're someone who has done Blender before, for instance, you will understand node-based design. That's what Flora does. Even if you use stuff like DaVinci Resolve and you color grade, a lot of things are node-based. One thing about Flora is it takes inputs and then you can structure different inputs to that question, right? So this is a great example. A good example actually is here where I have something like this. I want to combine two different engines like a GPT, Kling, and I want the results to be a video. So this is a picture, these are descriptions, this is another thing, and then this is a video. If you see flows of when people use it for VFX, it's quite interesting. I've used it to generate like stuff that would have done in After Effects and then maybe take into Lottie files and done with body moving. You can go to Flora and say, hey, I want to generate something that has a bit of movement to it, but it's for when someone has changed their password, and that is just me do something simple. But my point is, Flora is like a combination of everything out there, from ChatGPT to Midjourney to Stability to Kling. It just has everything that you'd need in terms of creating visual outputs as a designer. Another one is Manus, right? Manus is great. You can do almost anything. Like the thing about Manus is, I don't know, let me show you this. Create a set of images from animated short film that blend Japanese anime, blah blah blah. It does that. Manus basically, oh, I'm not signed in. Manus basically does. It's like an MCP basically. You give it a task to do. So for example, I can say, hey, I'm taking a trip to Kenya. Could you help me find the best reservations? This is my budget. This is that. It's searching websites for you. It basically makes sense for if you have someone who does like research using like the internet a lot, right? Manus can give you that in-depth um um analysis for a task that you give it, and then it can go ahead and build. So I'm like, hey, find me the cheapest tote bags on the internet today. Put all of that into an Excel spreadsheet so that I can get the best deals. Now find me the ones that I can actually ship to the US, right? Now build a website for me that allows me to sell this on XYZ platforms and add a 20% markup fee. Manus is going to start doing that. Now, this is a task that you give a team. So Manus almost feels magical. Next one is Stitch by AI, which is Stitch AI, which is this Manus, and this is Galileo. So Galileo is Stitch was purchased by Google recently. So basically, this is what you use as your new junior designer. You basically prompt and tell it what you want, and all of these UIs are basically written from a prompt, right? This is an example we should take a look at. I don't want to log in. Okay. Now this is the prompts that you use to get all of this. This is a design that you can set up with Figma. I'm not logged in, but point is you can look at the code of this. You can take this to Figma. But I've actually seen, not seen, I've worked with someone where we're trying to design something and we're like, you know what, let's just create a stitch for this. It was for a checkout page, right? So most people would take maybe 30 minutes an hour to design this, and you can do this in seconds, and you can keep refining. So like this is a great tool to have. Another great one to have in your arsenal is Logo Maker. Logo Maker basically allows you come up with a million different iterations of a logo by just prompting and talking to it. You get the frustrations of clients by the time you realize that you need to keep talking and refining things before you can get what you want. But it's also a great tool that helps you um, start from the ground up. Now, the good thing about Logo Maker is it can also help you with your brand book and like brand guidelines that you can share with your clients. All right. And then the last one is one we're talking about with UIZard. UIZard is interesting because you can basically prompt your way into really slick looking UI. Like you're talking and then you're giving feedback and you're making changes. And it's like you're talking to an actual designer and you're getting new prompts. And then each of the things you are doing, like each of the screens in the flow is there, right? You can see that you can prototype everything that you just designed quickly. Allows you have handoff code also. Pretty great tool to use. Um, Now you have to be able to grow, you have to join a community, right? The African saying is if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. A community will help you grow quickly in this new age, will also help you grow. Oh, for some reason, it's not showing here. But basically, I'm going to show you the communities that you can join. You have the Design Hangout on Slack. This is Design Hangout on Slack. We have Friends of Figma. So there are different Friends of Figma websites, communities around you. So the Friends of Figma Cardinal, Kano, Lagos. I think Lagos is one of the biggest ones, and Kano, right? So Kano for Friends of Figma last month. Really great guys right there. There's one in Ibadan also. I think Ibukun heads that one. Is that the one in Lagos or Ibadan? I'm trying to remember. But basically, these are great design communities to join because they're always talking about um later design tools, AIs, stuff like that. Now, if you're someone who doesn't like people, you can just be on a Discord server. This is Design Buddies. Design Buddies is actually really great. Um Discord design community. If you're like in crypto space, you realize that there are a lot of like Discord servers you can join to like grow and meet people, right? Same thing for design. You'd see a lot of great guys in these communities. So I'd recommend you actually joining one of these ones. Find a Friends of Figma chapter in your area. Basically saying find a Bible believing church in your, close to you. Join Slack communities, join design bodies, but basically interact with as many people as possible. It will go a long way in your journey. Learning resources to take a look at Interaction Design Foundations, which is IDF. They have a new course by Nestle Norman himself, which is Don Norman, sorry, which is AI for designers. Nestle Norman itself also has AI courses you can take. Design Lab has short courses. Coursera and Google have courses that they offer on AI. You can also, as I didn't mention them here, I didn't mention it here, but as junior designers, to learn the basics, you can also take courses on Domestika. Let me see if I can show you guys Domestika, domestika.org. Great. Domestika is basically one of the websites that is great for having, like, it has a lot of courses for creatives, like it's their niche, design, strategy, marketing, but mostly design, drawing, just like a creative space. It's one of the things that I used to take. So I took courses here to learn like certain things. I could come here and just take a course on color. It's great to take a whole Figma course, but sometimes it's better to take a course on one area that you want to understand. You have to understand typography better. Take that. I want to understand color better. I want to understand how to sketch better, stuff like that. Down to stuff like interior design and lighting. You can take a course on that. It's pretty interesting. I recommend this every day for people who are just getting into design. All right. Conclusion and final thoughts. Embrace change and lead change as a person. So embrace change as a designer. You are junior, senior, mid-level. AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere, right? You have to learn and adapt. You have to think about why you became a designer in the first place. It was to solve problems, to help people, and to create beauty, right? Or clarity out of chaos. So the tools changing shouldn't be a problem. It is how do I adapt to this tool? One of the reasons I personally love AI is because it's taking away a lot of tedious tasks. I detest tedious tasks. Like things that I know, like, oh God, if can this thing just be taken away? Like this is not a rectangle I want to draw right now. I don't want to do this right now. Like it's too tedious. But I have to do it because it's my job. Now AI takes away a lot of that tedious tasks because I have done it 1,000 times before. I have thrown that punch 1,000 times. Right now, I want a machine that throws that punch. But it allowed me to focus on the things that are exciting and important and more impactful. Right. So basically, it's freeing up bandwidth to me to focus on things that are more challenging and fun for me to do. So you have to become the kind of designer who embraces change and even leads it. So that person in your company, your organization, your community that's talking about how you can optimize your work and processes with AI. Have a great attitude, be proactive, right? People love employers, people, humans in general, love people who are keeping up with the future, but also ushering it in and bringing in change. Remember, it's people first always. Design is fundamentally about people. By staying true to this principle and adapting, designers can shape a future where technology enhances human experiences in a meaningful way. Humans first. I think that's the thing, right? You have to realize that you're designing for people. It's something that we forget a lot, and it's crazy that this has to be said all the time, but if you've designed long enough, you realize that for the most part, we seem to forget who we're designing for, which is human. So we should remember to take them into consideration when designing. So we must ensure that the technology we are using serves humanity, right? As designers, we are basically in a position to ensure that this remains the case. Like whatever we are creating serves humans first and not the other way around. We do not serve the machine serves us. Your career is your story, right? Tell your story, be loud about your story. Um, Again, your story could transform from being a designer that transformed how nonprofits use AI to accessible design, or former graphic designer evolves into an AI-driven product strategist. Whatever it is, like talk about your story, how you've basically been using AI to evolve and do things faster and better. I know someone, Design Chief Priest, he has always been a generalist, but right now I see him building a lot of amazing AI tools. There's one that builds the church follow-up app, which is very interesting. Like his story could be, oh, from being someone who was mostly championing design systems to building great design tools that is helping people do stuff. He has built something for um, helping business owners take orders in an automatic manner. Basically, you basically listed all your products somewhere, and then someone is chatting with you. So, hey, I want to buy a cake. Oh, 16-inch cake is this, 18-inch cake is this. What do you want to deliver it to? These are conversations that can be handled by AI. And these are things he's built for fun, right? So you can that person who has now become a builder, not just a designer. That could be a story like, oh, this guy actually knows how to get stuff done. Use the tools and strategies that we have discussed today to tell your story, iterate, experiment as you gain experience. Always be a lifelong learner. Remember, you have to have the passion for learning, right? Um, you need to also obviously build resilience. I mean, there are things that you would do that you would fail at. There are clients that would not like some of these outputs. You obviously have to be resilient, but you have to also learn from them. So learn how to use tools, learn how to learn from your mistakes, thrive, and treat your career itself like an experiment, like a project, right? And finally, this is my final thoughts for you guys. AI would be or is a powerful tool, right? But human insights is very important. There is something that's left that's very important is the human insights. A designer said this, and I think I am going to adopt it. The thing that will remain at the end of the day is the human insight. If you have read sci-fi novels, if you are someone who is trying Dune universe, realize at the end of the day, the most important thing was the human perspective to thing and not the machine's perspective to thing, right? I think that encapsulates the journey. Carry this insight forward, combine it with your new skills, and you are not just going to survive the AI age. Whatever age comes, you'll be someone who drives the design industry forward. Um, Thank you so much for your time, and I'll be open to taking questions.